On your slit lamps, you have various ways to lock the axle in place, and the locks can either be on the outside of the base housing or on the inside. And various brands have different ways of doing it, but these are some of the different types you might find. On the Haag-Streit, they have the types that are on the outside of the base housing, and it will be, you can tell because it's painted so it's seen. And you have the locking device, and then you have inside, you'll have this, you could call it a brake shoe, or it's called a jaw, and it has a little hole in it because there's a screw on this end that's sticking out a little bit. This hole would stick right in here, and then your brake knob, your brake screw, would push against this locking jaw against your axle. And securing your lock onto your base, you have a screw with some spacers, but they're not tight, so that gives the locking device the ability to move around a little bit to adjust while it's locking your axle. So you'll have screws with spacers, two of them, and they can move. That's your typical Haag-Streit locking device that's on the outside. But they also have some that are on the inside, and that would be, it wouldn't be on the outside, but it'd be on the inside. Now on the inside, on this Haag-Streit type, you have this ring, and you have the bolt, but also you have just a little pad, or like a little puck. It's only 1 millimeter long, so it's very small, and many times these get lost. These little brake pads or pucks, whatever you want to call it. So that's a very small one. And if it's gone, it's okay, because your screw is still going to screw in onto the axle. It's not going to be as like it was factory made without the little pad hitting the axle, but it will still work if you don't have it. And that's the typical Haag-Streit. Now the Topcon, theirs are usually on the inside of the housing, and they have a much larger stopper. They call this a stopper. This is the stopper ring, and this is the stopper, whatever they want to call that. They call it a stopper. And so when you're taking your knob off to look at the axle, if you can move your axle in and out and you can see the axle, that means this little puck is missing. So, and these can get lost too, and so when it's gone, the axle's brake screw is just pushing right onto the axle, And yeah, it works, but it's not like it was made in the factory, not the way it was designed to work. So that's the TopCon, the normal, usual TopCon braking devices. Then you have your Marco. Now your older Marcos were similar to the Haag-Streit in that they were on the outside, and they didn't have a little ring like this, a jaw or brake shoe like this. Theirs was on the inside, and they used something like a ring, and this ring fits inside here. And so if you took your screw off and was moving your axle in and out, and you could see your axle, that would probably mean that this ring has turned to where the opening is showing right at the screw. So it's not really doing its job. So what you would want to do is look inside, and you would see this ring in here, and you see the opening. So you would want to push that opening around maybe about 180 degrees. See right there, you can see it. But if we turn it, it will turn inside, and we're going to push it up to 180 degrees opposite. Now it's not showing through the hole, and when we look through here, we're looking through at the axle, you can't see it because now the ring is covering the axle, so when you're screwing down your screw, it's going to be pushing on this ring instead of that opening and pushing right down on your axle. And similar to the Haag-Streit, it also has screw holding it on with some spacers, and they're not tight, so they can move a little bit. So everything is important the way they designed it. And here's an example of another kind on the inside. They use the same principle of having a ring inside, but now this is on the inside. It also has a ring. So you would, if you took this off and you could see it, then you would know that this ring, the opening, is right where the screw is. So similarly, you would take it off and move it around so that now it's on away from there, because they start turning as you're moving the axle. They will slide back to this position right where the screw is going in. So it's just natural for it to move, and it doesn't move immediately. It takes a long time, but slowly but surely it starts to gravitate towards that opening. And you might want to, well, you would want to go ahead and turn that so that you're pushing down on this rather than on the axle. And this is the newer Marcos are like this. And then Takagi Marco has also designed this type of a brake, and it has to be taken off differently than your normal brakes, and it also has a ring inside here, but there's no little stopper pin. So even though Marco, well, this type doesn't use the ring anymore, they're using this type, and from what I can tell, it's just screwing right down onto the axle. So this may be a change for them. Well, it's definitely different from their ring type. So, and the more affordable slit lamps don't spend a lot of technology to try to have fancy locking devices. They're just going to have your screw go right into the axle. So I wouldn't expect many of your newer, less expensive slit lamps to have an elaborate type of locking system. It's just going to be something very simple. So these are more locks of either the old style or the newer developed slit lamps that were traditional. But I'm learning all the time myself, so this is not an exhaustive discussion, and you may find a completely different type of lock, but normally it's not the best that you're screwing right down on the axle. It might mar the axle up a little bit, but it's depending on how strong your axle is will determine if it really is going to affect it. Here's some numbers. These numbers might change. They may not be the right numbers, but here's some numbers I have. And I just wanted to show you the difference of the size of these little pucks, or these brake stoppers. The top cons are big, well, compared to this Haag-Streit stopper, whereas the Haag-Streit stopper is only 1 millimeter long and it's 3 millimeters wide, whereas the top con is 5 millimeters long by 4 millimeters wide. So it's a more pronounced stopper and than those. Just something interesting. I forgot to mention about the Zeiss slit lamps. They have different types of mechanisms to lock the axle, and the older styles are different from their newer styles. And there's a video out there that discusses the newer style SL120, SL130 type of locking devices and drag features. So you might want to look at that video.